welcome to the first ever Striking Blueprint with myself, Carl Thomas. We are going to be discussing everything combat related, but the first ever one today, I've been joined by an amazing guest who is going to essentially help us on understanding how to build the perfect combat athlete, okay? So, as I'm going to get this wrong, I'm going to read it because it's a serious tongue twister. The elite performance physical practitioner, Sam Marland. Very welcome to the first ever podcast. You're my first ever guest. I'm going to put it over there because I don't need it now because we're all good and all ready to rock and roll. So, do you want to just explain to the people who are watching to begin with what your role is within sports and what your skill set is?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me on your very first podcast. I feel very, very honoured.
You are.
Thank you. So great introduction. I mean, this is 9.5 years worth in the making now. Specialising with athletes in all sports, but predominantly when I met you, we sort of went into the kickboxing realm. And it falls into line with what I do, which is the tendon-based work. Fascial, recoil, all of the stuff that we're going to be talking about today.
Breaking the fourth wall a little bit then, so to realise how people understand how we know each other, is that I came to see you to begin with because my body was completely and utterly broken, like in pieces. And the main reason for that is I didn't really know, even through all the training I've done, so starting from, I've done capoeira, I've done karate, taekwondo, and then into kickboxing, is that I always did things the way I did them. And the idea of a warm-up was you run around a bit, you do some push-ups, you put your pads on, and then you start training. All right. And then the problem is now, me turning 40 years of age, just turned 40 years of age, is that now my body is starting to make me pay for the mistakes of me not doing things in the first place. So the reason obviously I came to you is because you referred as someone who's going to be good at almost rehab and prehab for both. If I'd have done the prehab before, I wouldn't have had the issues I've had, but it's also good of how to get there. So there's a lot of younger athletes right now. If you go back for me now to when I'm probably 16, 17, when you've got crazy amounts of energy, you want to be able to throw crazy spin kicks and crazy hands and everything like that. But you're not thinking about what's going to happen down the way. And all of the older people you ever speak to will say, oh, you wait till you get in your 30s. You wait to get into your 40s. You think it'll never happen. I'll be absolutely fine. Unbreakable. Don't get injured or anything. When in reality now, I can see it's happened. So is there any advice that you think would be really good for anybody in any striking sport? I'd probably say kicking based more, as I imagine that affects the back, just because mine would be. Or what advice would you give someone who's maybe in that age?
Going back to younger years now and what we know about the fascia, what we know about tendon-based and prehab, we need to make sure that we're doing some form of dynamic stretching. So we need to think about myofascial release. We're on a ball. This is what we started with, Carl.
Yeah, and it hurts.
And it hurts a lot. But
it works. Hurts and works.
It builds that blank canvas.
Yeah.
Our bodies are amazing at memorizing, how we move, moving patterns, storing emotions, storing physical movements so that we can, do our sport.
Yeah.
Do your spinning back kicks, do whatever you.
You even got the names right for the kick as well. That's decent.
There we go.
That's good. That's good.
I'm learning.
Yeah, it's good. When are you looking at times when we're doing normal exercise and warm stretches, everybody does repetition stuff. So I always did, like you do push-ups for this amount of time, that for that time. One of the main things that you got me doing that was really different, and I think you called it time under tension or something like that, or a way that everything is, you load the muscles in a particular way.
Correct.
Where, I do it. I know it's worked because I'm now in far better shape than I was before, and I no longer have the pain in order to do that. But why is that more important than just doing the regular normal exercise that we do?
Repetitive, isolated movements are going to dehydrate the fascia. Okay, so that's really important. Now, the way that we're loading our tendons under a lot of the movements that we've done, the isometrics, we're activating our tendons. So we're activating a greater system that's going to support movement, going to support rehabilitation, prehab for your case as well, and your landing mechanics as well. So how we interact to the floor. So we started a lot around the foot. We started around building that tension. How we interact on the floor is so important. And that's where we're basing a lot of our strength from. So if you look in other sports like Mike Tyson, for example, in the boxing realm there, how much power is generated there is through that foot. His stability, his grounding. So his stance his rotation, his power, is all coming up that anterior oblique sling. And that's what we'll sort of delve into a little bit more again with some more of your questions.
Okay, perfect. So the thing that I think is a bit weird as well, and I've always found this as a bit of an odd one, and I know that whenever I'm in the gym, you do always, if you spot me doing this, you always kind of give me that little bit of a look, almost like when your mum looks at you and she's really happy because she's seen you do something you didn't want to do. And that is, given the fact that, I mean, it might be hard to tell on the podcast, but we're actually the same size, but you might come across maybe slightly bigger on the camera, just for what it is.
Angles
that makes the difference here. But you don't actually lift any weights.
Correct. No.
And so the thing that I've always said is that if you want to do so, again, this is before I understand the difference or understood the difference, is that if you want to get into some kind of a bigger shape, if you need to try and move, let's say you're moving up a weight division or you're moving, down a weight division or something like that, but you still want to maintain having strength and muscle, you hit the weights. That's what you just hit the weights. So you go into the machines, you lift as much as is physically possible. And that's what we need to do. Now that obviously injured me, but that's not the way modern training's now moving. No. So now there's a lot more, I believe the term is functional training, or again, I might be butchering the terminology for what it should be. But I believe it's calisthenics. I got that one kind of right. But can you kind of explain the complete different side of your training that got to this level, which is what all athletes should really be doing?
Okay. So ultimately, when you're training in the gym, there's very little rotation happening. You're static, you're under the barbell, you're bench pressing, you're squatting, your foundational lifts. Okay. So these are basics of what we know. And there's an epidemic in that S&C world now where injuries are taking place, like non-contact injuries. And this is because we're becoming too stable, too stiff. Spinal rotation is no longer thought about. So with my training, with the style of stuff that we've done to rehabilitate your back, and now to push on through sort of more body weight, it's prioritizing less resistance. So prioritizing less spinal compression on the back,
which is what I had.
Correct. And relieving your back of those symptoms, relieving your lower back. Get it mobilized, get your core strong, get your posture strong, understanding where posture starts from the jaw down to the foot, and understanding that alignment and what nature gave us, really, not this unnatural.
I think you gave me the analogy of it of like swinging through trees and stuff like that, right. Wasn't it? It's like a monkey doesn't need to do the stretch and everything like that. It just knows how to swing naturally through trees and it doesn't pull muscles.
Correct. And it's ready to go an instant. And that's down to its, sticking to nature and moving. But we've all heard of like animal flow. We've all heard of different styles of movement now, and they're becoming popular and they're becoming for the right reasons. And that's how we should be moving.
Well, you see the change in the gym a little bit because you've still obviously always got, especially now the sun's come out a little bit, everybody's he's getting that little bit of a pump in the gym anyway. Everyone's on the weights. However, all gyms are now getting a little bit of a change because there seems to be that big open space that's generally like
the rig.
The bars and all these kind of things. And there's a lot more people on that. And they're the ones who kind of look a little bit more shredded. But what's interesting there is that they look more athletic. Now, the purpose of this podcast is to really build into what makes a good combat athlete. So if you are looking at somebody and they hit the gym and they're doing it mainly on weights and they are just smashing squats and chest and deads and everything like that, then, there'll be a benefit for it. But like you just said, then maneuverability is going to take a massive drop.
Let's put it this way, in really simple form. When do you get a chance to put your 150 bench press into action when you're kickboxing?
When I show people on a video, say, look how tough I am as I'm getting booted in the face.
You're in and out all the time. It's move, like you say, it's being able to be, fast in the right areas, mobile, that agility, that pliability. Yeah. That's far more important, especially, and this is the age old argument. We're trying to my message isn't just for the athletes as well, but predominantly today it is, but I'm trying to get everybody to move better.
Yeah, more freely.
Freely, yeah. Even if you're not in a ring, defending yourself or attacking. But
Yeah.
We're trying. This is a real movement, and it's important to get this message across.
It's definitely changing. So we look back at a fighter to begin with, and this is something that I haven't spoke about this one. There is one guy who did this, and I can't remember what it's called now. Conor McGregor brought something years ago, and it was a Brazilian trainer who just did flow work with him, and everybody was taking the mick out of kind of what was going on until Conor came out and just started sleeping people and just he moved better. He moved more freely. He was smooth. Nobody could really catch him. He was just too quick. He just seemed to have so much more dexterity than anybody else. And I believe that is, I don't know if you know about that. It was similar to, it was like a flow work or like a flow state.
You're talking about Ido Portal, which is, really good.
That's exactly what it was. I wish I'd have remembered that. I'd have sounded so much better if I got it right. Yeah, Ido
Portal.
That.
Yeah.
Okay, that's exactly what I was talking about. Is that almost like similar-ish to what you talk about in freedom of movement?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, my background being more like sort of gymnastic-based, this is where the calisthenics comes in, where there's a less emphasis on resistance, spinal compression. We understand that now is limiting your potential. So, that's where we're operating on now. That's where S&C is diversifying, it's breaking apart. And these are, again, these books in the S&C world, they were written 50, 60 years ago.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been much change. There's still the foundational movements, and they're pretty useless in that sense.
Yeah. So you can see the change then. So the change of which we've moved away from almost like the stocky heavy lifting and then to more freedom of movement.
Correct.
Athleticism, everything like that. We've then got to work at how we actually build the athlete and get the tools the right way. So the majority of striking sports that you get, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're working, you take boxing out basically. So you're looking at anything that does involve the legs, because that's going to be where you need a little bit more dexterity of the hips and things like that. But you can have that in Thai, in K1, in kickboxing, in Taekwondo, in Capoeira, in every different kind of combat style. So some of the guys who, you've worked with, so you've worked with a couple of my fighters. Did you work with Trinity as well? You did some with Trinity, did you?
No.
I think she's the one who was going to have it with I think she had the problem with the calf, didn't she, early on? Yeah. I think you gave me advice for her. That's what you've done with her. And then you've had Rory Harrison, you've had Sid Williams, and I think you had Sam Mosdale for a bit as well. I think you've had a few.
I have a few, yeah.
So now you kind of know what it is that they do. Now they're all, by the way, they are kickboxers, but specialize in two styles. So they do point fighting, light contact, kick light, and Sid does full contact as well. You've kind of seen how they move, how they work, kind of what their bodies are like. So you've probably got a great understanding now of a kicking athlete, more so than another, S&C coach or physical practitioner.
Yes.
See, I still remember it. Elite performance, physical practitioner. So having said that, what are the main strengths that you notice within them? Do they have anything that's stronger than an average person or one particular area or muscle group that allows them to move the way that they're doing?
Tendon density is one of the biggest things I noticed with the strikers was their Achilles heel, in the sense of the main focus, not their actual their weaknesses, but their Achilles tendon was incredible. So
is that always being on their toes and that's springing because obviously they're bare feet as well, aren't they?
Correct. In your sport, it's low level plyometrics, which is just building that tendon density all the time. And that's some of the most important ways to interact with the floor as well. So, that's happening in your sport every time you enter onto the circuit. Whenever you're doing your training, it's constant, and you're doing thousands of those repetitions a week. And that's one of the first things I noticed, especially in a lot of the athletes that I dealt with.
Perfect. So it leads me on quite nicely then to what we really want to start talking about. And I imagine this is why a lot of people are going to watch the podcast. And that is, people are going to want to try and get advice in order to improve on certain things. Now, if I've been in this amount of time that I have, and the advice has only really changed for me probably the last year or maybe last couple of years, is that people are having the same thing. So if we take one element to begin with, being kicking, and it doesn't need to be, it can be rear leg kicking or lead leg kicking. Like if we look at a lot of fighters in the UFC, there's still people who still utilize that front leg. So like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, front leg will come up because he does have a point fighting background. Now, I only ever worked on one leg which is what gave me all the problems with my back and everything like that.
Yeah.
But I also didn't know the right way to even train and improve it in order to get it high. Now, I know people tell me things about passive flexibility and active flexibility and the importance of being able to keep the leg in the air and to be able to keep jamming it out. Are there a particular or any particular set of exercises for just leg height?
There is,
because there's so many you'll see, but anything particular for it?
Again, we're always, and I'm always going to back this up with any exercises that we do before. We started with trigger release. It's so important. We can't underestimate the importance of the release work. Okay, so
explain just what that actually is. Well, the trigger release thing.
The analogy being, we're having a band and it's getting tighter. We could do the best exercises in the world, the best movements, but that analogy, that string, that knot, is just getting tighter and tighter and tighter. Now, mobilizing on a trigger ball, like a lacrosse ball, golf ball, you've been on all of them.
Yeah, I have, yeah.
But
they're all horrible.
Mobilizing that area, relieving that tension in the hips, number one. They're the middlemen and we need to look after them and we need to make sure that they're, ready to load again, ready to put movement through. So we always start with that trigger release. We always start with the release work. And then we go into that active work, the PNF work, we go into all of the stretching stuff, even the static stuff. It all has a place. It all has, dealing with other people's biomechanics all the time. We all come slightly differently. We all come with our own deficiencies. We all come with our imbalances. And it's just figuring out that plane where we're compressed, where we need to improve. So opening up that anterior obliques thing, I keep talking about this, but this is intersects from the chest, from the shoulder, across the pec, down into the abdominals, cross into that hip, okay? And that's like a band and it reverses all the way back round from that upper glute, all the way around, up through the lat, back to the shoulder. And this is how we generate that rotation. So when we're looking for higher kicks, when we're looking for, more flexibility in those ranges, we need to think about this pattern, this anterior obliques thing and the posterior obliques thing when we're including exercises. So rotational movements, restoring rotation, understanding landing mechanics again. So controlling our standing leg so that our leading leg has that little bit more efficiency. But we also digressed into the central nervous system as well and the PNF. So we did a lot.
What's PNF?
So peripheral nervous system.
Peripheral nervous system, right? Okay.
So this is PNS, sorry. PNS.
PNS.
Yeah.
That shows my limited knowledge of what we just spoke about, given the fact that I didn't even get the acronym right.
And making sure that we're stimulating all these other systems that make the body tick. It's not as simple, and it never has been. It's never been as simple as just, doing this simple exercise, doing that stretch, doing that will get you sorted. It's never been the case. And that's where those deficiencies come from. That's where our imbalances come from. So we need to make sure that we're stimulating all these other systems at the same time. So we've done a lot of isometrics before. We've done a lot of banded work, which is going to stimulate the peripheral nervous system.
Yeah.
The CNS, central nervous system.
I got that one.
Yeah. You know it now, don't you?
I got that one. The CNS, I got that one. Yeah, I got that one.
And, there are prolonged periods of time that we spend exposing our body to new positions. Because ultimately, if our central nervous system doesn't allow us to go into that new range, which is cognitive as well, I think initially we had a lot of sessions where your body was rejecting that movement.
Yes.
For a long time. And I told you it would get that little bit easier week by week as we expose ourselves to more and more of this style of training. And that's where we're at today. Now there's a lot of those stretches now that you can do.
Yeah.
You can enter into those new ranges again with the lead leg. And that's down to that style of training.
With the lead leg fighters, we all favor one leg.
Mm-hmm.
We all favor one leg. And the problem is when you're good at something,
you tend to use it.
You tend to use it more.
Yeah.
So I don't think anyone, I've run my club now for 20 years. I don't think anyone's seen me demonstrate on my left leg once. Yet my right leg, I'm like, watch this. I go, I want you to do this. And then you can use your other leg as well. All right, guys, let's go.
Yeah.
So they never see it happen. Mm. Is that some advice or really serious advice? Because bear in mind, the amount of pain that I've gone through for years and years and years, given my back, if that's a contributing factor to it, is there like some science behind the fact that you've got to use both legs? Don't just load up on one or you're going to get imbalances. You've probably got a very technical way of explaining it, but so the young fighters know it because eventually it will happen.
Yeah. I mean, again, in an ideal world, you're able to use both legs. You're able to lead with both legs, stand on both comfortably, and, there's going to be no problems. But for a lot of the fighters that will use with the one leg, you're building the imbalances. You're building compression along those routes, along the rotational routes that we spoke about from the anterior oblique sling, and they're being compressed. So you're shortening that chain all the time and lengthening your posterior chain. So we're causing rotation in the rib cage, and that's what's leading to lots of like lower back dominance. We had a mass in that lower back that we had to get through. I
had like a banana spine, didn't I?
Yeah, and we had to work with that, and that's years and years and years worth of, like you say, compression and biasty in your movements, and that's what we had to work with.
Yeah.
So pulling yourself out of that rotation, pulling yourself back to basically neutral, and this you can have exercises that run along that training pattern, runs along your fighting, and allows you to, kick freely.
Yeah.
With no regrets.
Yeah.
A couple of years down the line.
Yeah, a couple of years down the line, because it's trying to form really good habits, isn't it? We say, you form habits, then habits form you. So the other problem that the younger athletes seem to have as well, so all of my fighters, I think they're better at it because they're aware of it a little bit more. But that's the dangers of it, because when you don't have the pain, so if you're younger fighting, you don't have a lot of pain because you're young and you don't have back pain, knee pain, this, that, the other, and them little niggles when they move, is that they think, well, I don't need to rest. And then rest days vanish completely. Yeah. And then the overtraining issue comes in. Now, this is something I think I kind of classify with my lads, I call it burnout, or, something to that effect, where all of a sudden, they just don't perform well. They just don't fight well. It's like doing anything too much. But how real is the issue of overtraining? Is it a thing?
Massive. Yeah, it is. Of course it is. Every time you lift a weight, there's a consequence. There's a consequence in your central nervous system. It has to adapt and it has to change, and you need to give time for the rest period to take place to allow that recovery to happen. And there's so many other ways to train as well. There's so many other systems to be focusing on. It's not just how we look, because just how we look in kickboxing probably leads to losing that fight. Yeah, you're athletes and you're all able to perform at the highest level, and that's crucial. So you need to be thinking about all those systems that keep everything ticking over.
Yeah, and keep everything moving the right way. See, we have a problem with that a little bit. I think they don't really overtrain that much, but there's certain levels of things we can do. Like you do a lot of sparring. You can spar all the time, but we need to try and find ways to try and improve on. I mean, the kicking is the one thing, but it's the commitment to strikes. That's something that we have a little bit with, because if you get someone who's really good with one leg and they can just fire that thing all over the place, that is all they need, which is why they don't really focus on bringing something else from the other side or trying to focus on the hands, because everybody's kind of good at one thing. So you get your really, really natural ones. Now, with having natural fighters, you have people who naturally can do stuff that others can't. So you got someone who can come into their first lesson and they can kick, they go either leg and they hit with power. They just can. Their body just seems to be a little bit more built for it. They can smash shields or something like that.
Are they ex-gymnasts by any chance?
Funnily enough, yeah, some of my best fighters are ex-gymnasts. That is actually true. Yeah. In fact, yeah, they really are. They really are. I think if something comes to them too easy, we kind of struggle with it a bit. And there's a saying that I always have, which is hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Now, if you've got somebody who's really, really, really natural, there's an end point to everybody. A lot of the things that put fighters off is that they will compare themselves to another fighter based on what that person can do at that same point. So if you've got someone who can naturally do box split, front split, they can slam their leg up here and everything like that. Then someone who doesn't have the same level of natural ability, is it actually possible for that person to get to a level kicking wise of the other one in time?
Absolutely. With the right training. Yeah, definitely.
Right, okay. Because it seems to be one of the main issues that a lot of people have is that it's comparable against another athlete. I can't deal with that leg. That leg's just too fast. I can't deal with that. That's just too fast. But anybody can do it. So in terms of training plans, in order to do that, how often should somebody be training outside of the actual combat themselves? So if you've got someone who wants to get better at fighting, they go, yeah, brilliant. I do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'll have a rest day on a Wednesday or something like that. How often should somebody bringing in more of a strength and performance, more of a movement, more of a body conditioning, the kind of training that you do, how much of that should be, put within their training plan? What should be supplemented into that? How many days would you say, or hours?
Yeah, so it's a really good question, actually. And because of the many avenues that we have to train, as you know, some days are harder than others. They're not all just resistance-based. They're not just isometrics. There's other days that are much easier than the others. And there's the trigger release work that we talk about. So all of this, that style of training, you could do 6-7 days a week. It's very innate. It's very natural. And that will help improve that body and access to new ranges all the time. You're exposing yourself to all the other systems that make the body tick. And that's really, really important.
Right, perfect.
So 6 to 7 days is, it can be done.
7 days?
Yeah. And just because you have the weekend off.
That sounds a bit of graft, that does really. For 7 days. They're young though, they can hack it. They don't drink beer yet, do they?
Just to go over that, there's days where you may just spend time on the ball, roll the foot, get into those areas like the hips. You will reap the benefits. And the time on the ball
thing is horrible. I really get how it works and how and it does work. Now, I went to, I was in the Athens Challenge because I remember I was really excited. Do you remember? And I came to the gym to see you and I was really buzzing because I was training, my back wasn't sore or anything like that. And then I was a dickhead, wasn't I? I was really stupid because I came in with one of my other fighters, Josh, and you weren't in. And you weren't in, so you weren't there to say, don't do it. And I think we were going out. I think we were flying out 5 days later to Athens.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my comeback fight because I just turned vet. So it was my first vet trial. I was so excited. I was in shape and I was kicking and everything was really, really good. And then me and Josh went there and went, should we just do, we feel
press
really good.
Shoulder flexion.
Yeah. That's what we did. Yeah, we're doing that. And then we did something else. Then we just did too much. And it wasn't the kind of stuff that we should have been doing. And something kind of went again in my back. I was like, oh shit, I don't feel very good. And then I came in the following day and you were there and I kind of walked in. I was walking sideways with
hunched.
Yeah, like that. Like carrying like a woman carries a kid like that. I was walking around with the hip out to the side. And I was like that. And you said, what have you done? What have you done? I went, I did. And you kind of looked at me as if say, dickhead. Why?
Disappointed.
That's what. It wasn't dickhead. You didn't say disappointed. You said all sorts of things. But you were right. And then I took a ball with me. Yeah. And then there's actually, if you're anybody who was at the Athens Challenge, you'll see, because I still fought in it. And throughout the whole thing, in between coaching, everyone's looking at me as I'm laying on the mats and I've just got that lacrosse ball.
Yeah.
And I had a lacrosse ball under my hip at one point, then up on the other side. But then what's dead funny is I know other people did the same thing because there was fights. There was like some from Bulgaria. I know before they go, and as soon as you get into the veterans categories, they're all laying on balls and they're all doing it. So everybody is doing it. They all realize that you get to a point where you've got to start doing stuff and it's actually pretty normal.
Yeah.
Like I don't know you go over there, you into the warm-up area, foam rollers everywhere. Everybody is on a foam roller because everybody's starting to think, I've got to do this. Never used to be like that because it wasn't a thing. You just have to go and it's all about, just a bit soft. What are you doing? Bit soft, pointless. All else you're doing is pointless. Whereas now, this is like, I think you explained it as, is it a foam roller? Is that just trying to stretch tendons or?
Yeah, so foam roller is far more superficial for the sense of the muscle, the tendon, that you're rolling over.
Okay.
The trigger ball and golf ball, for example, you're going to delve into that. You're going to investigate much deeper into those deeper.
So it hurts.
Yeah, deeper insertions and origins of the muscles that, you're looking to mobilize and relieve your body of those, that tension that's storing from your sport, your everyday, your work life, your emotions as well. That's, the cognitive aspect of things as well, that we store emotions across our traps, across our pec. And those are the things that we need to be dealing with every day. And this is for the average person now as well, not just athletes. So it's coming through. It's coming through the industry. It's coming through the S&C. And as you said now, everybody seems to have, some form of prehab or rehab tool to help them recover during, and also post. So it's really important that people take this seriously and, and release areas that are holding tension.
Yeah. That are causing problems.
Correct.
And causing pain, because I've been exactly there. So I know exactly where they're at. So my fighters who are leading up now. So I'm going to keep dropping it in because I'm really proud of the fact that I've got fighters who are going to this. So I got some of my fighters and they're going to Portugal for the European Championships. And then they're also going to the Senior World Championships in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
You've worked with both of them.
Yes.
All right. Rory Harris and Sid Williams. They're both now been sponsored, by the way, by Top 10 GB, which is very good because they get all of their free, lovely fighting gear. They make money.
Congrats,
now,
lads.
when they put their codes out there now and somebody buys some pads, if they use their code, so they're putting them everywhere. Their social media has never been, on fire so much. So the time that they've now got, so they're going to have, I think they generally work it around about 5 to 6 weeks as like a training camp before they go out. And they're crazy dedicated because they're young, but they're really healthy. Like leading up to it, they miss out on the parties. They miss out on almost like a little bit of social life, and they do sacrifice a little bit. What advice would you have to, because there's going to be people doing this, not just at the moment, there's going to be fighters who are prepping for boxing. Yeah. There's going to be some who are going for sports that are currently in the Olympics or anything like that. All of these things, people are going to be training and working towards. Is there any generic exercise or any generic stretch or something that people should be doing as either as a preventative measure or an improvement one, in the same way that you've got to drink a certain amount of water a day, this a day or that a day? Is there anything that is a generic thing across the board that is beneficial to multiple people and styles?
Yeah, so you mentioned there about drinking water for hydration and talking about, that aspect of things. Movement is what will eventually hydrate the fascia and eventually hydrate the muscle. So our movement has to be substantial. I think we spoke about actually demonstrating these videos properly outside.
Yes.
We'll put these and attach those to the videos. Of the actual movements that we're going to talk about now. So a lot of them will be opening the hips up properly under.
Yeah, you can't explain it here, can you? On the table, it'd be a very different.
It's hard. Yeah,
be a very different video if you started spreading your hips on the table. That's not what I'm after in these podcasts. Yeah. So,
but we'll delve into sort of time and attention in the hip with hip exercises, opening the hips, strengthening the hips, talking about all the other ranges that happen there, and strengthening that Achilles heel. And then talking about rotation, that's also, and that is how the body should work. That's how the body's innate movement patterns will fall out after that. So we need to prep the body, build the foundations strong. And a lot of the foundational movements I've had all the lads do, yourself, will attach to the video so that there's a better understanding of what the training is all about.
Okay, perfect. So building on to all of this, because we're going to have you on, I put a couple of questions out for things for people to say. One of them that came across, and a few people said it, and you can tell that the majority of people who follow my social media accounts all do the same sport as me. Yeah. So it's all, as I've gone on about, kicking based. Yeah. But everybody looks at one thing. You must be good at kicking if you do the box splits. Now, people say, you just can't do it. Can't do it, never be able to do it. So as a myth busting thing right now, can anyone do the box splits? Unless they've got like an injury that prevents them from doing so, is a natural thing.
Yes, I would say it's trainable.
I thought you were going to say no then, which would give me such a good get out clause for never being able to do it.
No, I think we should delve into this.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. 40 years of age, I do not need to do the box splits.
Again, if you can expose your body to the sort of tension that you're talking about and the positions, you will develop the strength. You will develop the ability to be able to do a lot. The body can adapt to many things, and a lot of it that holds us back is cognitive. Our initial reaction to the stretch,
pain.
when we experience pain, we panic, and that panic then leads to physical contractions in the muscle, and then that's what's holding us back, and that's what we need to surpass. Yeah. So with the right training, dedication to our weak points, and but when you say healthy body can do it.
So you say cognitive. And it's kind of a thing because cognitive as well, you're going to go down choice, aren't you? Because nobody enjoys stretching. Like no one actually enjoys it. Like everybody knows, how do you get better? Well, you do stretching. How much stretching do you do? And I will even ask some of my younger kids, like, guys, have you done any stretching at home? And they go, yeah, what have you done? And they haven't. They never do any of it. But I guarantee they're all doing fit. They'll all do cardio. They'll all go for a run. They'll all hit the bag. They'll all do that because that's fun. You do the stuff that you like and then you neglect what it is that you know you should do. And then we all complain that we can't do it enough.
It's a shame. It's a shame because, you know, a huge percentage of people that stretch, you know, do it wrong.
Oh.
Yeah. And you know, the muscle, the area will become placid and elastic. It'll go too far. And that's collagen fibers being destroyed. So that's something completely, you can go too far. It's about building that range up slowly and under control. So, you know, resistance or flexibility plus resistance will equal mobility, pliability. So doing it at the right rate and sensibly is what will, you know.
That was so complicated, everything you just said then. You lost me at collagen. I was thinking of a face cream, mate. You lost me entirely on that one. So what you do then, so you are based in Wilmslow, but I mean, everybody watching this might not be from Wilmslow. So they're going to have to find different ways to try and almost follow and get involved with what it is that you're doing. If people wanted to ask advice on a particular thing, because I brought all of my fighters to you, some of them for different reasons. Mine was for my back. I got advice for you for another of my fighters, Trinity, that was based upon calves, which was a crazy one because that worked. Because what you'd said on that one is she had a problem with her calf, so we worked on just stretching. And you said, no, you don't need to stretch it, you need to work it, which is crazy. You actually need to work the muscle more, but when she was working, it was hurting. So when I said that to her, she said, that can't be a thing. She did it. And now she moves quite freely on it. So it did work. So anybody who's got these kind of issues or they want advice and anything, how would they be able to get in contact with you in order to just ask you questions or ask for some advice from you? What are your contacts? So
contacts on Instagram, I'm at Marland PT. We can discuss sort of any questions that somebody has. Drop me a DM and we can discuss, you know, either just a one-off question or some form of training, anything that might be relating up to the fights, you know, anything along those lines. But we deal with on Instagram, Marland PT. Perfect. And obviously people who are local to it, you're based in Total Fitness Wilmslow. I mean, I go there as well. I don't know why I forgot what that was. Total Fitness Wilmslow, you go to as well, okay? So any other bits that you think we haven't covered here today that would be beneficial for anybody who is looking to progress? It is more for like, I'd say it's not necessarily just for the people who are going to be at the highest end level of sport, because a lot of things, if they're not in the right physical shape for it, if they don't feel as if they can kick well enough, punch well enough, they've got anything like that. It can be people who are just involved in training, not working towards a fight, but involved in some kind of martial arts or striking training. Is there anything else that you think would be beneficial that because I didn't know about it, wouldn't have asked you the question of? No, I think we've covered a lot of the initial foundational stuff that, you know, I would be, if I was dealing with somebody new, I think we've dealt with a lot of stuff. There's a lot going into this style of training. And I feel like with the linked videos that we'll have, it will explain a little bit more about what we're going to do, or how we approach our training, and all the other aspects that make the body tick. I always say that, but that's so, so important. There's many systems that make the body tick. And, you know, it's not just how we look or, you know, getting underneath a barbell or just squatting. A lot of the things that still confuse me when we do our sessions, and it's funny, is that one of which is that, like, you can't count, and I find that crazy. So like if you go, right, you're doing 6 of these, and then I'll do 4, and you'll go, okay, it's 5 left. I just don't get that. That's so. And the other one is you say, relax your face. Yeah. So important. You've got to explain that before we go, because I can't have it, because I still don't know why, but I do it. And Josh goes, he always says to us, relax your face. And we do it all the time. And when you're in a position where you're on a band and you're being held on some of them, that had these things that you've had strapped around our arms, and then we're kind of leaning back and the chest and everything. And you're like, down your neck, and you go, just relax your face. Fucking you relax your face. Why? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that term's used. If there's science behind this now, I'm going to be blown away. There is. And a lot of it is around, you know, again, the signal from the brain and clenching, and the posture starts in the jaw. So if we're tensing up and, you know, we're bracing for impact at all times, especially when we're stretching, especially when we're doing, you know, more things that require sort of pliability, a bit more, you know, of ease, you are causing a physical contraction. That is never lost. That's just translated into physical tension stored in the jaw, where our posture starts, and it's where your body will eventually memorize that position. So when you go into, you know, you train for the box splits and you're doing that under many different positions, and then you're just clenching your way through. You're just clenching you never relax. You're never at ease. Your body will remember that, and it will brace, and it will brace incorrectly for that position, and it will memorize the whole thing.
You're genuinely not just taking the piss.
I'm not.
There's actually a thing. There's actually science behind it. Yeah. Okay. I'll correct Josh on that one then, and we'll do it as of normal. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Right. Well, thank you very much for being my first ever guest on my Striking Blueprint with my very nice logo and branding at the side. I'm very proud of it all. Looks very good. So thank you very much. So I'm going to finish that one today. What I want to try and do is, over these podcasts, I'm going to try and do them. I'm going to try and get them quite frequently. And I want to try and get guests in for many different reasons. I started this one out to begin with on physicality, because I imagine it's something that might prevent people from being involved in sports, or everybody's got a little bit of an injury in there. And not only can we get advice there from Sam through this podcast, but you've also now got ways to contact him if you've got anything like I went through that has now turned a corner. I wasn't planning on fighting at all. And now obviously I've fought three times abroad already, and it's going good. So that's the first part. Next time, I want to focus on mentality. So I've got a PhD student for sports psychology and sports science, and they're going to go over the mental side of sport and how you prep beforehand, how you make sure you're in the right mindset. And then we're going to do everything from reviews for tournaments. We are going to get fighters, coaches, different styles, and we're going to get some of the athletes themselves. So as our first ever one, I'm very happy, and thank you very much for being my first ever guest.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.